Hello everyone, my name is Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. So this is the video that was meant to go up on Tuesday, but we had that teaser come out for the elves, and as many of you know, I'm a huge fan of the elves and particularly the dark elves, so that video just couldn't wait for me. The second anything to do with Morathi or Malekith/Malarion comes out, I'm all over it. I will be talking about the elves more really soon because there's a lot of stuff flying around on the internet that people are saying, theories about what the teaser really means, and to be honest, I think some of it is incredibly unlikely, so I do want to give my thoughts on that at some point. You also have people talking about if we will even get any new figures at all, and I would say it's more or less a guarantee that we at least get a new Morathi, because we don't actually have a model for her at all at the moment. And the teaser also showed illustrations of harpies which you can't buy at all on the store anymore. We do have a big GW event this evening at LVO, and there is a good chance we will hear some new details there, so fingers crossed for that. I will obviously cover anything exciting we do hear from it, and to be honest, by the time you watch this video, it may have already happened. I'm pretty sure we will at least get shown the new Shadespire warbands, but elves are what we really want to hear about most, obviously. But anyway, this video is not about the elves. I'm sure I will find a way to bring them up again at some point in this video, but primarily this video is about Malign Portents, and it's my summary, of course, of the latest Malign Portents short story that was uploaded on the website, this time called To Truly Excel. To be honest with you, it was actually a very straightforward story, and it felt somehow shorter than the others we have had so far. I mean, it probably isn't, and I can't be bothered to go back and actually check, but it certainly felt like a very quick story to me, especially in terms of the actual events that happen in it. That being said, it was really excellent. It adds to the lore in a great way and probably dispels a few rumours people were having about Malign Portents, while confirming a few others. It hasn't been long since I covered Death at the Door, which was the short story released a couple of weeks ago, and in that we heard about an ex-member of the Free Guild protecting his sick son in Gairan. At the very end, it's likely he and his son were both killed, and all of these great images were being used to describe their assailant. The one that stood out to most people was the word statue, and in my last video that covered that topic, I said it was almost guaranteed to just be a metaphor, and that what we were seeing was actually a Stormcast Eternal from the Knights Excelsior. A whole group of other people, however, on the internet were talking about the word statue, and I think they were just taking it far too literally. In fact, now that we've read this one, I know they were taking it far too literally, because they actually thought that maybe Nagash had started reanimating statues around the realms, like some kind of strange army of gargoyles. I even said in that video that I thought that was very unlikely. Other people were talking about so-called Deathcast Eternals, where they thought that Nagash had somehow managed to kill Stormcast and enslave their souls, preventing them from returning to Azir. People were theorising that it could have something to do with Stormcast that are reforged too many times, and although I must admit Deathcast has a good ring to it, and it's kind of an intriguing and interesting concept, I really don't see it happening. I could be wrong, but that's just my current thoughts at the moment. We will talk more about that shortly, because this story that we've had recently links very closely to Death at the Door. Speaking of Death at the Door, my main theory was basically that the mysterious attacker was actually a Knights Excelsior, which is one of the groups of Stormcast Eternals. This new story confirms that I was correct, and it hopefully confirms the fact that they might now get a larger part in the overall lore of Age of Sigmar, and maybe even the narrative of Malign Portents. The Knights Excelsior are the Stormcast who are dedicated to eradicating all traces of chaos, no matter the cost. And in Death at the Door, I started saying, wow, we are actually seeing some evil Stormcast here. Quite a few people commented saying, well, just because Stormcast are part of Order, that doesn't mean they are good. And while I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, it kind of misses my point. I personally think that the Knights Excelsior are evil in their own way. I mean, evil comes down to a matter of perspective, of course, and they are carrying out their acts with completely noble intentions, but I think they cross a line of what is morally right. I don't think they see it that way at all. To them, they are just carrying out the single, most central will of Sigmar, which is to eradicate chaos. But to me, they're going about it in the completely wrong way, because they are killing innocent people who could quite obviously be otherwise saved. Knowing what I know about the Stormcast Eternals, I do not think Sigmar would want his Stormcast doing the things that the Knights Excelsior do at all. That is not to say he would actually intervene or outcast them or anything that drastic. I think he would tolerate them as the lesser of two evils. But the key point I'm making is I don't think he would actually want them doing what they are doing, and I don't ever think it was his intentions when he made the Stormcast. To me, with everything I've read so far, I think it's the characters that are more like Vandus Hammerhand of the Hammers of Sigmar and Gardus of the Hallowed Knights, which are the kind of exact noble pillars that the Stormcast were created to be. That being said, no, the Grand Alliance Order does not translate to the word good at all, and it's one of the reasons I find it highly probable that the new elves will remain a part of Order, even though they will likely be led by an angry Morathi. Right, so on to the story itself. As I said earlier, it's called To Truly Excel, and straight away, the word excel is meant to make you think Knights Excelsior. So what happens? We meet Hythor, who is a liberator in the Knights Excelsior. Hythor is a liberator who has died and been reforged so many times that he has all but lost the human part of himself altogether. It is simply a dull and distant kind of feeling at the back of his head, and it's just like it means nothing to him anymore. At the start of the story, he is battling the forces of Nurgle, and they are getting their backsides kicked pretty hard. The battle is happening outside a really small settlement called Holmspear, and we can predict that it is occurring in Ghyran again, partly because Death at the Door was set in Ghyran, and additionally the settlement has a palisade around it built from so-called spite branch trees, which sound exactly like something that would come out of Ghyran. Those are basically these vicious trees covered in foot-long thorns. Anyway, so we have this small settlement, Holmspear, that is only big enough for around 100 people to live there, and it's built either in a clearing or at the edge of some dense woodland. The palisade around the settlement provides pretty decent protection, and it also has a perimeter trench built around it. So far, the Nurgle followers in the area haven't managed to break through those walls, and the second the Stormcast entered the picture, they didn't stand a chance. The actual fighting itself is over very quickly, and the Chaos Warriors all flee back towards the woods, but they don't ever make it there because the Stormcast basically exterminate them all. It was only a small Nurgle warband, and obviously being probably Ghyran, there are going to be countless more in the surrounding woodlands. But for now, Holmspear has been saved. We also meet Hythor's Liberator Prime, Rygos, who is about as moody as you might expect a Liberator Prime of the Knights Excelsior to be. Having defeated their adversaries, the Stormcast demand the villagers open the gate, which they do only too willingly. These are people who have suffered for a long time. They've been short of food, they're losing people daily to famine and disease, and protection is not something they take for granted at all. They're in such a desperate situation that they wouldn't hesitate to let their Stormcast saviours in. I can only imagine the joy they must have felt realising that their troubles were all coming to an end and that finally help had arrived from their God King Sigmar. Obviously things weren't going to have a happy ending, however. The Stormcast march their way into the settlement, look around the stone cottages and settlements around Holmspear, and basically are making an assessment of what they see. The leader of the town's guard greets them, overjoyed that Sigmar has basically answered his prayers, and he looks at these towering immortal warriors, truly believing that the settlement is finally safe and that everything is going to be okay. On the flip side of the coin, when Hythor looks at him, however, all he sees is weakness and the yellow grime that covers his clothes and body. Hythor, having lost more or less all of his sense of humanity, doesn't look at the villagers with a shred of pity or sympathy at all. The villagers and their leader, however, are all actually starting to feel a bit uneasy and intimidated by the fact that the Knights Excelsior are not talking to them. They're just kind of staring coldly back at them whilst they make their assessment of the village. The Stormcast then line up in the town square and Hythor and Rygos exchange a few brief words. The town is in a dire situation and it's full of weakness, sickness and disease. Even the statue of a Sigmarite saint and the dead bodies in the street are covered in maggots and Nurgle tainted green slime. The smell of the place is also overbearing. Between the two of them, Rygos and Hythor come to the conclusion that the town is tainted and that if even a single mortal is tainted, then that taint will spread from person to person and eventually from town to town. As Knights Excelsior, there is only one path for them to follow. As they cry out for the glory of Sigmar and bar the gates, the townsfolk suddenly start to feel terror as they realise that they are in real danger. The Knights Excelsior basically then end the story by proceeding to massacre every living being in that town. It was a great story. The Stormcaster described here again in this story repeatedly as statues, so finally we can put any crazy theories about possessed statues to rest. It also confirms to us beyond all reasonable doubt that the Death at the Door story is indeed about a Knights Excelsior. These guys are basically going around and purging people who would even be associated with chaos, massacring innocents as they see fit. Personally, I think this story completely closes off all of those rumours about Deathcast Eternals. I think that basically when they have been reforged too many times, they just become these almost mindless, autonomous servants of Sigmar. I think that being reforged too many times literally means that they lose all traces of who they were and their humanity, and they become fixated on the pursuit of purging chaos. To me, that is the reason why Sigmar wants to investigate whether Shade Glass can reverse this process, or if not reverse it, perhaps at least prevent it from happening. This is an unwanted side effect of the reforging process, and Sigmar doesn't want groups of Stormcast who go round massacring individuals. I have no doubt that many of the individuals in the town could have been saved and would never have really succumbed to the taint of chaos had they been allowed to live, and therefore I think that their actions are pretty twisted and evil. I think this is very similar to what we had going on in Death at the Door, really, because, you know, it's very ethically dodgy, but I think you could make a case for killing the man's son because he was infected with the disease of Nurgle, and it's highly likely in that case that there was nothing that could be done to save him, and that disease would have been spread. However, what about his father? He was strong and healthy, and what about the rest of the villagers in Sorrow Creek that the Knights Excelsior would have probably killed too, just because of that one sick boy? But anyway, I really enjoyed the story, and I hope you all did too. Let me know what your thoughts are on it, and we obviously have that next story coming out tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to cover it tomorrow, but at some point over the weekend I will do my best. It just depends on what news we have coming out of LVO tonight, but anyway, that is it from me for now. Don't forget to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the video if you are new, and I will see you guys really soon.